if we can keep him and his health in our thoughts while we listen to, and in my case, create this episode, that would be wonderful. Maybe next time Swagman will be on with me. But anyway, here's the intro. Well, it's one of the intros. Here's the other one. This is one we all know. Hold on a sec. All right. Well, in Swagman's absence, which he's only informed me of this afternoon, so I have not come up with a plan for this episode at all. And as you know, I'm not really used to talking by myself either. I thought I would read a little excerpt from the book that I'm writing, and will probably stay writing until the day I die because I really haven't got the first clue as to how to publish a book. Well, another thing I will say is that a lot of you will know that I recently changed. I'm no longer the cranky TC, I'm now the cranky bus driver. Um, I don't know what that little fact is going to achieve for anyone in knowing that, but I don't know. Let's see where the evening takes us. Crack a beer, sit down, settle in. Whatever, whatever it is you do for fun. While I get this, while I get this app open. So, like I said, I'm probably going to read almost the entire book. To be quite frank, um, where is the docs? There it is. Haha. The book is going to be called, if it if it ever gets released, the working title so far, and I want to know people's thoughts on this. So please, if you listen to this episode, put a comment and tell me what you think of this name. How to not have your shit together and be completely okay with it. Of course, when the book does eventually get published, I'm not going to have the S word in there. It's going to be a little picture of a poo. Not the guy from The Simpsons, an actual poo. The chocolate ice cream emoji. All right, so the introduction. Hi. Firstly, thanks for buying this book in whatever capacity you've purchased it. If you're anything like me, you're listening to it on Audible because you can't be fucked or just don't have time to read it yourself. Um, I want to be clear when I say this is not a self help book. Very clear. Okay, and I am by no means a self help guru. My name is Ryan, but some call me Cranky. Despite being perpetually broke, my friends and I have found ways to stay sort of happy. We're not wealthy, and we're okay with that. We still enjoy life. The goals we've kicked have been small by most people's standards, but they're fulfilling to us. This book is purely about how to deal with the little issues that day to day life throws at us. I grew up in Cape Town, South Africa, but have lived in Australia since 2003. I moved here when I was 14. I was constantly told I had to do well in school so I could go to university and then get a good job. Um, Side note, that's not necessarily true. On with the book. See, the issue with that is that my idea of a good job and my grandmother's or mother's idea of a good job differed greatly. I was talking about a job that I enjoyed while they were talking about a job that paid well. Little did they know that I had no interest in being a doctor or a scientist or an accountant. I had no interest in school or academia at all. It had its uses, sure. I learned to read and write in two languages, and it sparked a few other little interests in me, but for the most part, I could take it or leave it. The inspiration to write this book hit me one Saturday night in 2025 while heading to a party with my wife and daughter. It was the birthday party of a man who also lives by the creeds mentioned in this book. Several men, to be more accurate: Corey, Rob, Sean, Chris, and Adam. Some of the most relaxed and happiest people I know. My point is, I've never written a book. I've never studied anything to do with writing books or philosophy or psychology. I have no idea how to even start, so bear with me. Um, and if an idea hasn't come yet, it may be on the way, or maybe on its way, sorry. This is me talking to the audience now. If an idea hasn't come yet for something great that you're going to do, it might be on its way. Or it may not. And that's perfectly okay, which is entirely what this book's about. Not everyone is going to be the Brad Pitt of what they do, but everyone is going to be the Brad Pitt of their own life. This book is an experiment for me. If it sells, happy days. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Never be afraid to experiment. The worst they can say is no. Unless you're 17 and thinking of asking a girl out, then the worst they can say is, ew, what the fuck? Anyway, on with the book. Beer in your undies on a Saturday arvo. No, it doesn't have to be a beer, or in my case, it is one. Insert drinking noises here. It doesn't have to be in your undies, and it doesn't have to be on a Saturday arvo. Starting on a Saturday morning will do just fine. I'm joking. It can be whatever day of the week you get off work. This chapter is dedicated to my friend Corey, who practices this so often he has a YouTube music playlist named exactly this, which he was kind enough to share with me a while back. It's important to take a day off from the world every so often to just do the stuff that you want to do. Emphasis on the word you, not your wife, not your children, but you. Your idea of drinking beer may be going fishing or taking a drive by yourself. I mean, by all means, involve your wife and children most of the time, but they all need time off from you as much as you need time off from them. 3 out of 4 Sundays will see me sitting on my couch in my undies with a beer in hand while Bluey dominates the 72-inch LCD TV I bought for my PS5. That show's fucking great. However, this is my idea of relaxation. Yours might be something completely different. Some religions have weekends right. I'm not religious. And I'm staring down the camera as I say this. You know, it's an aside. I'm not religious. They have a day out of every week when they do absolutely nothing. This isn't feasible in the modern age, but it's still necessary. All human beings need to decompress, almost literally every now and then. There is nothing wrong with spending the whole day on the couch, as long as you don't do it too often, or a whole day doing something else you enjoy, whether it be fishing or golfing, or even in the case of a few of my friends, flying. One of my friends. You know who you are. I know you're listening to this podcast, dude. Thank you. We can also call it the nothing day. The nothing day has also gone wrong in the past, especially if you have someone in your life, especially in your house, who doesn't understand them. Anecdote inbound, I think. Where was that? Especially if you have, they'll see you doing nothing or preferably not doing it. Sorry, they'll see you doing your thing or preferably not doing it and think it means you're free to do what they ask. Two things come into play here. I did say don't do it too often. You still have responsibilities. Uh, talk your nothing days over with the people in your life and let anyone likely to try and disrupt them know that you plan on spending that day doing absolutely fuck all in advance. If you have nobody like that, excellent. Have you ever heard the phrase? This is number 2. Number 2, have you ever heard the phrase busy doing nothing? It's an excellent phrase, isn't it? And it means something completely different when you're the one doing nothing. You've planned this day, you've marked it on the calendar, you've told your wife and kids, your boss rings you and asks if you can come in. Sorry, man, I'm busy doing nothing. I want to be clear the nothing day isn't about sitting on your ass doing nothing all day. It's about blocking out the noise of day to day life. It's almost like a rebellion against the hustle. There have been many times when my nothing days have failed. They often do when you have kids, and that's okay. Sometimes my wife needs me to drive somewhere, or my kids will hurt themselves. Then a nothing day can turn to absolute shit at short notice. I have pretty bad luck. My boss will always call me the Friday before a designated nothing day and ask if I want to work. He occasionally calls about weekends. I don't have one planned, but he is guaranteed to call on one that I do. It's none of his business why I can't come in, but it always makes me feel awkward and bad for the rest of the team. Don't feel like I do, okay? You don't have to feel bad for the rest of the team. Unless you're a cop, a fireman, or paramedic, there is no work related emergency that can't wait until tomorrow. Unless, of course, it's a water leak that's blown out the whole main street. But let's face it, when last did that happen? You need to unwind, and you will burn yourself out if you don't take at least a day a month to just veg out or at least get lost in doing something you seriously enjoy. Okay? In Parks and Rec, for example, Ron Swanson spends his nothing days doing woodwork and generally ignoring other people. This sounds like heaven to me. In Italy, not a TV show, the country, the nothing day is so celebrated they call it dolce far niente, the sweetness of doing nothing. Thank you, Eat, Pray, Love. All about doing nothing. The idea is that you sit in a cafe or bar with your drink and daydream while people watching. My grandmother used to tell me off for daydreaming while I was supposed to be doing my homework. Neither of us knew at the time I was exploring Italian culture. When I was in my 20s, I lived in a town in southern New South Wales called Cooma. One of my favourite nothing day activities was to drive to Canberra and spend the day sitting at either Cocoa Black for their incredible chocolate. Chocolate is my only weakness, or Coffee Club in Civic Centre, and just lose myself in daydreams while I watch the world go by with a huge mochaccino in hand. And I mean huge. They served those things in bowls at Cocoa Black. I wish that place hadn't shut. I had no idea back then that I was observing a tradition of any sort or doing something that's essentially a form of meditation. I was far too manly for that. I thought I was just being lazy. Okay, reading on. I drove a crapped out Magna in those days, Mitsubishi Magna, and but at least the heater worked, which I was thankful for since winters down there tend to get pretty cold. They're not called the Snowy Mountains for their warmth. The winter days spent performing this little ritual were among my favorites. Winter is my favorite season. I love cold weather far more than I love hot weather. The cozy heat of the interior of the car versus the blistering cold of the wind outside, the hot coffee and warming chocolate are a stark contrast to the outdoors. The alternative was an absolutely nothing day where I'd spend the entire day wrapped up in bed with the heater cranking. Those really were the days. And it was a lot easier to achieve a nothing day or dolce far niente than it is now. For some reason, it came with a lot more guilt for me. Of course, I have since learnt that said guilt was unfounded. It was the voice of my dead grandpa and just about everyone else telling me what a useless, lazy piece of shit I was because I wasn't grabbing life by the balls by simultaneously going to uni and starting a business. In a way, that pressure killed my motivation. I killed any motivation I would otherwise have had to do those things right away. Life's balls can be grabbed tomorrow. They're not going anywhere. But your mental health will be if you keep believing those people. To quote Bruno Mars in the Lazy song, I might mess around and get my college degree. I bet my old man would be so proud of me, but sorry, Pops, you'll just have to wait. Pops for me would mean Grandpa. That man never stopped. He eventually worked himself into the grave at 76. Literally, he was cleaning his roof and started to feel some discomfort in his chest. This legend finished the damn job, then climbed down the ladder, found my grandma, and said, sorry, time to put on your best Afrikaner accent. Marion, remember how the doctor said I should call her if I feel any discomfort? Yeah, well, I think I should call her. The doctor insisted that he go directly to the hospital. It turns out his discomfort had been a severe heart attack. He had a second one on the operating table, which is how he passed. But even my hard-working grandpa spent an hour or two in his lazy boy at the end of the day. No, my actual pops, my dad, supports my nothing day mentality. He should, since he's the one who taught me how to do it. The man works hard and has a lot of troubles in his life, so his nothing days are well deserved. Where are we? How did I just lose my spot? Ah, well deserved. He likes to spend them in either one of two ways. Number one, lumming, South African slang for chilling out or just hanging out, around the house in his bathrobe and slippers, with a book in one hand and a cup of decaf in the other. Or two, driving into the veld with his camp chair and, you guessed it, a book and a cup of decaf. He sent me some incredible photos from his little forays into the bush. Most road trips in South Africa are almost like unofficial safaris. Yeah, he has. He sent me some pretty cool pictures of things like, you know, elephants and giraffes and water buffalo and things like that. I'm trying to figure out where the time elapsed has gone. It's normally in a pretty big, there at the top, 18 minutes. Beauty. Okay. Chapter 2. Not that I'm calling these chapters, I'm just calling them sections, I guess. I haven't really put the word chapter in there. Enjoy the little things. This is a little cliched, but you do need to stop and take in your surroundings. Life will get ahead of you if you don't. No phone call or meeting is so important that you can't take the time to take your shoes off and walk in the grass. It's something the younger generation says, isn't it? Touch grass. They're right to say it too. Too many adults lose touch with nature, all the world around them as a whole, because they don't slow down anymore. We need to slow down. Sometimes, if I finish work in time, I can stand in front of my house and watch thousands of bats migrating towards the feeding grounds behind my area every evening. Bats fly silently, so most people don't even realize this utterly spectacular sight is taking place directly above their heads as their busy day draws to a close. It's a sight to behold, and many completely miss it. Those gorgeously silent creatures against the backdrop, and against the purple and orange backdrop of the setting sun, flying in their thousands, have a way of making you feel small and reminding you that nature is incredible and far greater than any of your problems. Growing up in Cape Town, Cooma, and Sydney has allowed me to remain in touch with nature just about all my life. In Cape Town, the phrase "a quick hike" is commonplace. You'll see why if you ever look the place up, and you'll know why if you live there. With Table Mountain right on your doorstep, both exercise and nature were easy to access. Mum, my sister, and I would often hike to the Woodhead Reservoir. It's something completely different to have a mountain in the middle of the city. But this chapter isn't about boasting about my beautiful hometown. It's about appreciating what is around you, no matter what it is. There is as much beauty in an office block as there is in a wave lapping at a beach. In case you haven't noticed, this is a very calm chapter. So there probably won't be any swearing in it. There'll be time for that later. Okay, fine. Fuck. Happy? Right, let's get on with it. This is all about taking a deep breath and taking in your surroundings. Look up from your screen or book. If you're in traffic, take a look. If you're in traffic, take a look to the left and right. Look further than what's right in front of you. Most people only look as far as what's in front of them. Another way I've learned to achieve happiness is by perfecting the 1,000-yard stare. You look towards the horizon and then you look a little further. Once I moved to Australia, I moved to Cooma for about 10 years, and so I became something of a country boy. I became a very, very well practiced at the 1,000-yard stare. What I'm trying to say is that you need to practice grounding yourself. This has become ever more important since the invention of smartphones and their easy access to instant entertainment. Look up from it. Every now and then, whether you are on the train, walking, or God forbid driving, you are the spawn of Satan, you know who you are. Just look up and soak in your surroundings. As I often leave for work before the sun rises, I like to stop and watch it if I have time. I regularly work in the outdoors, so I get to do this sort of thing rather often. Just look up and appreciate everything around me. As I said before, skyscrapers can be as beautiful as forests. As it turns out, this is a form of meditation. Om. Almost as important as having several beers with a mate. It helps you to relax, even if it means just looking up from your computer and taking in the true magnificence of your office space. Fucking great movie, which is also about just relaxing and taking a look at life. This activity will serve two purposes. It can ground you and it can reduce eye strain. So look away from your computer every now and then. It's good for you. To be completely fair, this chapter is hard for me to write. At the time of writing, I'd lived in Sydney for 10 years or so. Having lived in far better places, I was spoiled for lifestyle in Cooma and Cape Town. I found it difficult to see the beauty in a place that reminded me of a public toilet. It upset me that in some way or another, the good spots all seemed to be for the wealthy. Even visiting them for free wasn't cheap. It usually required taking the day off work, which makes it harder than it already was to pay the bills. Then I'd have to either take food with me, which was a moderately expensive affair, or buy food there, which was a very expensive affair. It didn't help that people on Facebook and Instagram seemed to be living their best lives. Kid free, traveling all over the world. When I had kids, I couldn't even take them to Bondi. It turns out I was right not to. I took them later in life and they hated it. At the time of writing, we preferred going to Kiama. The beach there isn't crawling with tourists and the restaurants aren't too overpriced. But I digress. That mentality was killing me. Time for another sip. I won't tell you that I stopped worrying about what people on Instagram are doing. I still do. But rather than get jealous, I congratulate them on the hard work that goes into taking that trip or buying that house. In that way, I've learned to appreciate the beauty and the struggle in their lives too. Um, we're all doing it tough in some way or another. Instagram can help you look at things the other way too. If you want to be physical rather than metaphorical, look at the scene around you and go, how could I compose this scene for an Instagram photo? What hashtags could I use to get it maximum views? This challenge is um, the challenge is you're not allowed to use filters. It has to be raw, no filters. I I never used filters in my photography. When you learn to think like that, you come to understand that everything is awesome. All you have to do is figure out what angle you're going to look at it from. One more thing for this chapter. When one of these things does occur, bugger what society says about living in the moment. Get your phone out and film that shit. Take photos and videos at every opportunity you get. You'll only see each moment once. I certainly do. It drives my wife mad at times. Every time we're out with the kids, I take loads of photos of everyone just doing stuff. What are you taking photos of this time? You better not post that. I'm not posting anything anywhere. And you'll thank me in 10 years, trust me. The poem of William Henry Davies is a good example of how it can. Sorry, the poetry of William Henry Davies is a good example of how it can be to slow down and appreciate the small things. Now, I'm not a poetic or romantic person. Don't worry, I won't be doing much of what I'm about to do. I'm just attaching this poem to back up my words. This is his poem, Leisure, from 1911. What is life if full of care? We have no time to stand and stare, no time to stand beneath the boughs and stare as long as sheep and cows. No time to see in woods we pass where squirrels hide their nuts in grass. No time to see in broad daylight streams of stars like skies at night. No time to turn at beauty's glance and watch her feet, how they can dance. No time to wait till her mouth can enrich that smile her eyes began. A poor life, this, if full of care, we have no time to stand and stare. Too long, didn't read. The poem itself is a rebellion in the face of the Industrial Revolution, saying it's forcing people to become too busy to enjoy the little things. Sometimes I like to sit and watch the rain fall. If you really listen, it's full of different sounds. A drop landing on dry ground will make a different sound to one landing on wet ground or in a puddle. Raindrops falling through banana trees make a different sound to those falling through avocado trees or pine trees. This is because the leaves of the banana trees are bigger, like they have their own little roofs. I might chuck in a whole chapter on learning to enjoy weather that isn't your typically enjoyable weather a little later in the book. Time for a bit of a break, huh? Well, I'm going to chuck the theme music back on and run off to the fridge because I have run out of my beverage. Well, I'm back. That's not too bad for a license-free track, is it? Not bad for something I got for free. All right. We're just going to dive straight back into the book, huh? This one, it's a new chapter called Good People. This be a chapter written about my friends. It's ingrained into this book so they know I'm not forgetting them. That was cheeky of me, sorry, but the song might be right. Maybe if the world did contain more people like them, we'd be better off. People who are honest and expect nothing from you. I mean, still do stuff for them, but that's how friendship works. But they don't get upset if you aren't constantly doing stuff for them. That's toxic. Just as toxic as people who do stuff for you and then get upset that you don't return the favor in time. Heaven knows I've known a few of those people in my time. Some of them have even been family. I had a friend, emphasis on had, who was like that. It eventually became part of his downfall in my book. And I mean, my book is in my understanding, not actually in my book. I'm not gonna use this book to bring him down. The funny thing is that is exponential. The more he behaved like that, the more I distanced myself. Of course, the more I distanced myself, the clingier he got. I had a difficult time understanding that my time wasn't only for him. Sorry, he had a difficult time understanding that. I didn't hear from him unless he needed a favor. At that time, I was working 12 hours a day, raising a baby, trying to maintain a relationship with my wife and older kids, run a business, keep up household responsibilities such as maintenance and cleaning, and just generally keep up the relationships I already have with friends who did understand where I was in life. I didn't have time for that, and he eventually told me goodbye. Don't be that guy. But at the same time, don't be me. In that situation, I'd stretched myself too thin and it was taxing on me and my relationships. He was not patient enough for me to get my shit together. But at that time, I shouldn't have taken on so much shit that I needed to get together, that it cost me a friendship. Imagine you are a plant. The people around you are your soil. Where you put your roots down greatly influences the type of nutrients you'll get. Unlike an actual plant, though, you can uproot yourself at any time and replant yourself in a better quality soil. Or you can choose what quality soil to put your roots in the first place. Somebody once told me you must ensure you're never the smartest person in the room. Sage advice if you know what it means to you. In some cases, it may mean you have to prune some flowers, as it were. In others, it means you have to understand that the people around you have strengths and weaknesses that you don't know about, and that you can stand to learn from them. There are parts of their lives that you don't know about. Sometimes you just move on from people. You change, or they change, or more importantly, their true colors begin to show. For example, I've spent many a night sitting quietly around the fire with my friends. Those are the ones you want, the ones who are comfortable with conversation and in silence. Both need to be able to flow naturally for me. I actually can't wait for winter so I can get the fire going again. At the time of writing, I needed to get a new outdoor fireplace as my dog ran into the old one and pushed it down the stairs, causing one of the legs to break off. I love the cold nights and warm flames with friends. Kind of like in a beer advert. Speaking of beer, time for another sip. Here we go. This is one of my favorite chapters to write. Sounds to cry to in the shower. We've all done it, right? No matter how hard you think you are, you've sobbed in the shower at some point. I find Dolly or Lana Del Rey to be a good companion for this mission. They can sing your soul apart. Don't lie, every man has been here at some point in his life. What's that? Not me, you say? No, no, my friend, that's not me yet. It's coming. Music sets the mood for anything but the beach. Sorry, but I strongly believe nature provides its own soundtrack there. But we will cover that later. For now, let's talk about the old shower cry. We've all sat in the shower and let the hot water wash our sins away while Dolly Parton or Garth Brooks reminds us that we aren't the only ones who are shower crying messes. This activity may or may not include a shower, beer, or wine. It's a shower beer in my case. Time for another sip. I am convinced that music has the power to fix the soul, or at least make us feel less alone in our problems, as it can lift us and heighten an already good mood. Nietzsche once said that life without music is a mistake. I guarantee that dude cried in the shower to Wagner or something. Oh, that violin hits hard, he'd be thinking. Just reading back over that line is making my inner music connoisseur go, vinyl and moisture don't mix. What the fuck? Why would you even write that? He might have been listening on the radio. Nietzsche was German, so he probably enjoyed a good shower lager just like I do, a philosopher after my own heart. As you can probably tell by the song reference in the previous chapter, I fucking love music. I love nearly every genre except for maybe older country music, and even then, not all of it. Whiskey River sees the volume get turned right up every time I play Grand Theft Auto 5. I'm an avid gamer too, by the way. But then again, more on that later. Another thing I love about my job is the fact that my long commute allows for at least an hour of loud music, whether it be the start of the day or the end. Particularly on Fridays, I do a little thing to I do little things to celebrate making it all the way to the end of the week. Loud music on the way home is but one of those things. Aside, you'll find out what one of the other of those things is if you read the book. Or I might cover it in, I think it's the next chapter anyway, whatever. A good 80s power ballad like Roxette's Faded Like a Flower tends to get this job done quite nicely. The windows go down, the volume goes up, and the inner karaoke king comes out. Air guitar and all. Not when I'm driving, though. I have my hands on the wheel. Oddly, every other car at the traffic lights likes to roll its own windows up after a few seconds of this. I'm sure it's not related because I'm fucking awesome, but hey, someone had to say it, man. My love of both music and, conversely, peace and quiet is the reason I can never live in an apartment block again. Not one of the ones built for poor people like me, anyway. It'd drive me ballistic having to be quiet all the time, and also being able to hear the neighbors coughing. Silence is also music to me. That's why I love my trips to the country. The silence is unbelievably loud out there. I learned to sit around a drum fire in silence up there. My mate and I would spend all day chopping down trees and selling to sell as firewood to tourists in the winter. We would go out early in the morning through a fresh layer of snow. We only cut down the dead trees on a mutual friend's property. It did him a little service and it helped us make a bit of money. Just us two in the middle of nowhere, splitting wood and enjoying a few beers and the occasional joint. Wink face. In the gorgeously cold weather. I truly learned how to let loose down there. There weren't many cops around, and the ones that were had this boys will be boys mentality towards us locals. Several times we would be at the pub, and the town policeman of Adaminaby or Berrydale would come down and announce that there would be an RBT set up on the main road. Quote, so either leave now or book a room tonight because I don't want to catch any of you out there. End quote. Either way, every one of these interactions involved music, whether it was played at the pub or on car speakers or the golden music that is the silence of the snow in winter. Not even the bugs are awake to make noise at that time of the year. The silence presses into your ears. Everyone who has experienced true silence knows what that feels like. There isn't even traffic noise out there. That sounds romantic until you experience it for the first time. And it makes you feel nauseous, strangely enough. Well, here's another funny little anecdote for you. When my children were very little, I think they would have been about 5, 4, and 2, we were driving around Penrith. And I had some music going in my car, which is an absolute must in my car. I can't drive without music. Well, I was belting out some number. I'm an amazing singer. Just ask me. But when I pulled up at a set of lights, I looked in the rearview mirror to see 3 crying faces, legit tears streaming down cheeks. So I turned the volume down and asked the kids what was wrong. And my 5-year-old, my daughter Sophie, replied by yelling through sobs, "Dad, please stop." It still makes me laugh. It still makes me laugh to this day. Oh shit! Hang on. Oh boy, I'll keep reading. Sound can invade your whole body. Sound and vibration can destroy. You can almost literally shout things apart like in Skyrim, so why shouldn't it be used to fix? Back in 2011, I was working up in a little snowy hydro-owned town called Cabramatta in the snowy mountains of Australia. The winters there are cold and they start early. The houses are all designed with steeply sloped roofs because of this. That's because of the snow. The town itself occupies the walls of a valley. None of this is important. It's just beautiful and peaceful. So it's nice to describe it. I truly miss working there. My co-workers and I all stayed in one of these houses. We were on a construction crew and the house was earmarked for renovation. It was freezing cold outside, so we all had the heaters on inside, which made it just warm enough. I say just warm enough. I think we had it at about 25 degrees, so it was pretty hot. It was bucketing down rain, which was slamming down on the Colorbond steel roof so loudly none of us even bothered to try chatting at the dinner table. We all just sat around eating in deafening silence. Our ears were completely impacted by the constant drilling of the rain on the roof and the windows, when suddenly there was real silence, real ear-splitting silence, just out of the blue. We stared around the room at each other, stunned. We were shocked by the sudden change. Rather than just accept that the rain, and therefore the noise, had stopped, we all got up and went outside. It hadn't stopped raining. The temperature outside had dropped so quickly that the rain had flash frozen into snow. Several different extremes were going on at once. Warm to frozen, wet to dry, rain to snow, loud to quiet. When I was younger, my mum took my sister and me camping pretty often. Our usual spot was Imhoff's Gift Caravan Park in Komaki, Cape Town. It was right on the beach, and you could hear the waves crashing into the sand at night. I would lie on my back at night, in my tent, and just listen to the mighty power of nature, and nothing else. That's why I love storms so much too. Okay, this last one is the chapter I promised you was coming. This one is called Treat Thyself. All right, this is the chapter I've been looking forward to the most. Yeah, I know I said it about the last one, but this one I actually wrote it in the book. Okay. It's one I have a pretty fair authority on, as I practice it all the time in my little rituals. For me, it's the 12th commandment after cover thy ass. For the most part, throughout history, existence has been a pretty shit go for most of humanity. Right, we started fighting off wild animals and the cold in caves and other naturally occurring shelters. The property market wasn't something we really worried about, but whether or not we would ever see the sun again, whether that be by its unwillingness to return. I mean, would you, if you ever got the option to leave Earth and all of its inhabitants behind, or whether or not you survived the night? Once we realized that the sun was going to be a regular visitor, we got the whole homelessness thing sorted out. Finding food became a priority. Then figuring out how to cook that food. Then we had to contend with neighboring tribes who would be more than happy to kill us and steal our food. We still had sickness and animals to worry about. So we built walls and citadels. And all those things require manpower, and all of those men were not paid. I think the less offensive way of saying what they were is involuntary worker. Please laugh. That's a joke. Of course, slavery went on for many centuries, even millennia, and it was going on alongside other horrible things such as cities with next to no plumbing, rampant disease in the form of the plague and leprosy. And then there was quote unquote conscription. The conscription your dad had was a little different to the conscription we used to have. I think it was called press ganging. Press ganging. Damn it. My nose is blocked, so I can't quite. Press ganging. Press ganging. Okay. Glorified kidnapping. If you were lucky enough to survive going to war for several years, you'd come home and work until you died several years later. Humans are no longer enslaved in the traditional sense. Many of us are in debt in some way, whether it be to the bank or the tax office, which is all in aid of making existence feel a little less shit, or at least make it feel like life is a little less shit. This is why I have my little routines for spoiling myself. Okay, I'll never be able to buy a house, but I can buy a beautifully chocolatey mochaccino on a Friday morning. I started to get really excited for Friday mornings. A mocha at 6 a.m. is my favorite way of celebrating the end of the week. I took something I was overdoing because I enjoyed it and set a day for it, one single day per week. Corey, whom I have mentioned before, and I used to break up the week by having a couple of beers on a Wednesday night. It's nothing special, but it's one of the things that kept me sane. We would get some music going in my backyard, maybe light the fire, and just sit around and talking shit with nobody expecting anything of us. We ended up stopping that one, though, for several reasons. It got expensive, my new job was keeping me back a lot on Wednesday nights. It would usually result in us staying up later than we otherwise would on a weeknight. And then there's just the amount I was drinking in a week. It was unhealthy. Speaking of, it's beer o'clock again. Okay, of course, we still catch up. We still have beers. It's just on a Friday night and we watch dashcam videos together rather than doing exactly the same thing separately. Market to start the last day of the week and beers to ring out the old week that was. It's also a marker for the upcoming Dolce Far Niente. Nice callback, Ryan. Good job. This one day a week mentality is good for a few reasons. One, it can help you reduce unhealthy habits. My line of work can be rather boring. This can cause people to smoke more since it's all you can really do while you're standing out on a stop at. The no phones rule. By the way, I wrote this when I was still a traffic controller. I'm now a bus driver. Anyway, the no phones rule can be an absolute mind killer. And so many of us turn to smoking or vaping. I've cut down the cigarettes to every second evening, and if I smoke just one cigarette at work, I won't smoke in the evening. It makes the ritual, it makes the ritual feel special again. You actually get more of a dopamine hit from it than if you don't do it as often. If it's something unhealthy, like the beers for me, it gives your body time to recover. As with the cigarettes, there was a time I was hitting the beers every single night. I was waking up feeling rat shit every morning and hitting the beers again after I'd finished work. I was justifying this behavior by going, "It's been a long, hot day. Let's grab a cold one." Bottoms up. But seriously. Now, now that thought is, it's been a long, hot week. Let's relax and and really appreciate this ice cold beverage I've been looking forward to all week. Number three, your self control improves. It takes a long time, but it does. You do eventually lose that little voice in your head that keeps chanting, "Cigarette, cigarette." You know you want it. Get it in ya. When you first cut back, it's almost deafening. And I understand that. It's a rough habit to drop. The human mind is unique in that it's the only thing in creation that can disobey its own instructions. I love to treat myself, but those things stop being a treat if you do, or in my case, consume them all the time. All right, I have a coworker who goes through 4 cans of energy drinks in a day. So much, in fact, that they no longer do anything for him. I was joking around with him about it, and the amount of sugar in those things. I actually took the can from him and read the nutritional values, right? Which told me this particular can had something like 238 milligrams of sugar in it. It was a 300 milliliter can. A milligram takes up about the same as almost the same amount of space as a milliliter. This energy drink was just almost entirely made out of sugar. Okay, that's an aside. That's not part of the book. I I pointed out to about 3/4 of the way up the can and said, "This much of the stuff in this can is just sugar. Everything else is crammed in here," indicating to the part above that quarter. That means you eat at least nearly an entire kilogram of sugar in a day. No, that's not right. That'd be 238 grams of sugar. Milligrams are a lot smaller, but still, it's uh, it's something to think about. And he hit back with, "Yeah, but you had a bottle of Coke yesterday. How healthy is that?" I did have a bottle of Coke the previous day. It would have been my first one in about 8 weeks because I love Coke. Coca Cola, by the way, not booger sugar. I also love chocolate. But again, it's a treat. It's something special for when my boy and I go down to the shops. And only when I go to the shops with him because he and I enjoy going on little walks together. And one of our destinations is our local IGA to cash in our recycling. This makes it a monthly reward for our efforts. Just as a little side note, I even do this with my meals. I like to save the best part of the meal, usually the meat, for last. It gives me something to look forward to after eating the stuff I don't really care for. Throughout my life, people have told me, "You need to save your money, save for uni, save for a house, save for this, save for that." Sure, do that if you can, if you're given the opportunity. But if you're in a financial situation like I am, putting away the $5 that not buying a slightly nicer coffee at the end of the week will save you would be a long and excruciatingly painful way of saving for one of those big life goals. If you put that $5 away each week for a year, you'd have saved up $260, the equivalent of 2 tanks of diesel. Cue the Monty Burns meme with the caption, "I'd be happier with the coffee." Maybe your enjoyment comes from things like, I don't know, traveling rather than coffee, whatever your pleasure. If it makes life feel a little less like eternal suffering, then bugger what the boomers are saying, just do it. Have the occasional beer, buy the coffee, take the trip if you can afford it. Your life goals aren't the same as everyone else's. And that is as much as you're getting for free. Um, I didn't realize I had an hour of content written in that book. So, anyway, wow, thanks for sticking around and listening if you do listen to this episode. That's been absolutely wonderful. I hope you enjoy the book. I will let everybody know via this podcast when it comes out. But the let's get the business things out of the way. Um, nah, bugger that. I'll do that by pasting it into the end of the episode. Good old on track meals. They help so much. I love I love on track meals. Anyway, um, I believe that rounds out the show. Thank you very much for listening and have a good day on the roads. Be safe, be kind, be peaceful, and most of all, don't be a doormat. Bye bye.